What really lingers inside the homes we move into? We don't always know the history, who lived there before, or what might have happened within those walls. Tonight's stories come from people who've heard their names called when no one was there, footsteps echoing through empty halls in the dead of night, and even seen transparent figures walk across their bed, slipping into closets and vanishing without a trace. These are real experiences, and they'll make you question what might already be waiting in the place you call home. My house used to be haunted. I know that sounds stupid, but I'll explain my memory. This is the only one I personally remember vividly. So, my brothers and I used to sleep in our parents' bed when we were very young. One night, I must have been messing around or something, and I ended up getting kicked out of the room as a punishment. I don't know why, but my first thought after realizing the door was locked was to walk down my hall. In my house, my parents' bedroom is at the end of the hallway with two doors going down the hall and another door on the opposite end. I started checking the rooms, not sure why, and I looked into the first room on my left and saw nothing. I walked a little further, and the door on my right was shut, so I didn't even check. I got to the second door on the left and looked in. The room was pitch black, like it was just a void. And then a train drove past the doorway. It was like a real train, not a toy. It was dark, and it had a skull-like thing floating on the side like a hologram. I didn't feel fear or anything negative until it finally passed. Once it fully passed, the room almost seemed to brighten slightly, and I could see objects in the room. The second it became normal again, I was filled with fear and panic. I sprinted back to my parents' room and banged on the door. My mom didn't open it, so I went into the bathroom right next door and grabbed a tube of toothpaste. I don't remember my exact thoughts, but I figured doing it would get my mom to open the door to see it and I could get in. I don't remember anything else about that night, but I know it wasn't a dream because my mom remembers me crying once I got into the room and saying that I saw a train. I also know it's not a dream because there was still toothpaste residue on the door the next day. That is my first-hand experience that I remember vividly. What makes it harder to explain is that it wasn't the only strange thing tied to that house. There was something that happened when I was too young to remember myself, but my parents still talk about it. When I was just a couple months old, they left me on their bed for a nap. It was a tall bed, and they surrounded me with pillows so I wouldn't fall. They went into the living room with my older brother, who was 2 at the time, and they all ended up falling asleep together on the couch while watching a movie. None of them sleepwalk, and they're all light sleepers, but they woke up to the sound of me crying. Not upstairs, but on the kitchen floor. There's no way my brothers could have carried me down safely, and neither of my parents woke up or moved. To this day, they have no idea how I got there. As we got a little older, things didn't stop. One day, we were getting ready to go somewhere. My older brother went into my parents' room to grab something. He came back out shaken, saying he saw an Egyptian statue thing. He ran outside to my mom and asked her to come back in with him to get his shoes. That alone was enough to worry her, because he never asked for something like that before. When she asked him what he meant, he described what he saw. She later looked it up and believed she found what he was describing, which only made things feel more real. After that, my mom started researching, trying to figure out if there was any reason behind what was happening, whether it was something tied to our house or the land. She eventually came across the idea of simply asking whatever it was to leave. My parents had both said they would sometimes see it walk into their closet. So one day my mom went in there and spoke out loud. She said something along the lines of, "Can you please leave? You never used to bother us, but now you're starting to scare my kids." And from that moment on, everything stopped. Before that, though, it had become something almost familiar. We even gave it a name, Ryan. Other people saw it too, not just my immediate family. And what's strange is that everyone described the same thing. A small boy, semi-transparent, with a faint blue tint. No one ever felt threatened or in danger, just a weird sense of calm mixed with the feeling that they should be afraid. My dad used to say he'd be lying in bed watching TV at night and see a little boy walk across the foot of the bed. He'd assumed it was one of us until it walked straight into the closet and disappeared. Extended family experienced things too. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even grandparents all described seeing the same figure. And then there was the voices. People would hear their names being called, but in someone else's voice. One time my aunt kept hearing my mom calling her while she was heading to the bathroom. When she came out and asked why, my mom said she hadn't said anything at all. Another time my mom heard my dad calling her from the garage. She kept answering, "What? What?" but only heard her name repeated back. When she finally went out there, no one was there. She ended up calling my dad at work. He answered from over 30 minutes away. After my mom asked it to leave, all of it stopped. No more sightings, no more voices, nothing. But the memory of that train and everything that came with that house never really left. This occurrence happened when I was 12 years old, back in 2016. On a Friday night, my family and I watched a movie since it was the start of the weekend. After the movie ended, everyone went upstairs to go to bed. Once I made it to my room, my elderly dog walked into my room and laid right by my bed. But it was suspicious to me because all the years we've had him, he never slept in any other room besides my parents' room. As I'm lying down in a dark room with a small nightlight, I try falling asleep, but I was getting hot due to the heat being turned on in the house. It was December when this happened, so I'm tossing and turning, trying to get comfortable to go to sleep. All of a sudden, I start hearing footsteps coming up the stairs, but the light never came on, and like I mentioned before, everyone headed upstairs to go to bed. There was no way that I wouldn't have heard someone going down the stairs. The footsteps coming up the stairs continue, and it eventually stops right by my doorway, which was fully open. I didn't see anything, so I assumed maybe it was my siblings who forgot something downstairs, but that still didn't make sense. So as I'm lying down, I have my oscillating fan turned on full blast, and I heard a loud noise right by where my fan was, right in my left ear. The noise sounded like a noise a horse makes when they get something in their nose, a loud puff almost, and I jumped up. I forgot to mention when the footsteps stopped in front of my door, my dog got up and started barking right into the darkness in my doorway and started whimpering and ran into my parents' room. After that, I basically passed out and woke up when it was still dark outside. But I try moving over my bed and I can't. I come to the realization that something is holding me down. I try calling my brother's name, but it came out as a whisper when I tried saying his name out loud. I eventually woke up again, and I tell my parents what I experienced. My dad had something blow in his ear as well in the same night. I've experienced some other weird stuff since then, but not as frequently. Things that happened when I was younger. I, 29 female, used to be very interested in all things paranormal when I was young. I grew up watching all the TV shows, Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures, etc. I used to frequent different most haunted places websites, and I used to always seek out video or photo evidence of the paranormal. Whenever I talk about the paranormal with people these days, my tone has changed a bit. I've become a skeptic over the years due to the lack of personal experiences as I've gotten older. But these are the stories that I have from my past that I still can't really explain. I wonder what you guys think. The first experience I had happened when I was young. I think I was in first grade. The layout of our house at the time had all the bedrooms upstairs. You walk up the stairs, my room was on the right, my sister's room right next to mine, and right across from the stairs, my mom's room to the left at the end of the landing. It was a regular day. My sister had gotten some new posters that she was putting up on her wall. I was in the room with her, just hanging out, when all of a sudden I got an overwhelming, uneasy feeling. It felt like someone was watching me. I turned around and I saw what looked like a very tall figure wrapped in a large white bedsheet walking down our stairs very slowly. I watched until it was down the stairs and out of sight. Then I ran to the room to go to my mom's room just as she was walking out, and I said, "Mom, did you see the lady?" Obviously, she was confused, so I told her what I saw, and we checked the house, and we couldn't find anything or anyone. In the same house, I don't remember exactly what was going on this particular day, but I was upstairs just outside of my room when I saw something that looked like a fuzzy black blob, maybe the size of a rabbit, floating from one side of my room to the other, and it disappeared when it hit the wall. I looked on the other side of the wall, my sister's room, and nothing was there. The next part of my life where I remember having any experiences happened when I was in high school. My dad had gotten a new house, and there was just something about that house. I always had a strange, uneasy feeling when I was either home alone or the only one awake. This is the time in my life where I felt like the most happened. A lot of little things, small noises when I couldn't pinpoint an origin. It got to a point where I couldn't sleep in a room by myself because I would hear knocking on the walls or footsteps in the room I was in. There was one night where I was sleeping in my sister's room and she was asleep already. My dad was asleep in his room and I was watching whatever was on TV past midnight. All of a sudden I heard what sounded like someone running full speed with heavy footsteps up the stairs. My heart was racing. I was so scared and the door was still open. So all I did was face the wall and hold the blanket over my head until I fell asleep. After that, I started sleeping downstairs. I would sleep on the couch that was directly under my old room. Like most kids in high school, I would stay up pretty late. There was one night where I was watching TV. It was around 3 a.m., and I heard what sounded like someone walking around directly above me. I wrote it off as my sister walking to the bathroom until I asked her the next day, and she told me she was asleep before midnight and hadn't gotten up until the morning. I eventually stopped sleeping in that room. Another time, I was watching a movie with my family in the room that has the view of the stairs and the upstairs bathroom, and I saw what looked like a floating ball of light in the bathroom. It stayed there for a few seconds before disappearing. Another room in that house that gave me weird, uneasy feelings was my dad's room. Anytime I would walk in there by myself, I just had a weird feeling I couldn't explain. The only other things that have happened to me were 2 instances of sleep paralysis. One was pretty simple. I had fallen asleep on the couch at my mom's house, and in this sleep paralysis dream, or whatever you want to call it, a bunch of friends of mine had come in one by one to talk to me by the couch. All of a sudden, everyone disappeared and the house was empty, and my body would not let me sit up. I was trying so hard to move or speak, and nothing was working, until suddenly I snapped out of it and sat straight up. The other time I was asleep in my bed. I thought I had woken up and I was staring at my ceiling when all of a sudden a dark figure without a face started slowly moving over me and taking up my vision. I could see 2 hands moving up my sides and I was full of fear. And once I couldn't see anything but darkness, I woke up with my heart pounding. Since that last instance of sleep paralysis, I haven't had anything happen to me. I have since become a skeptic of the paranormal and have started to think maybe all of my experiences may have been an overactive imagination. But I'm interested to see what anyone else thinks about my experiences and why I had these at a younger age, but nothing in the last 8 years. Thank you for spending this eerie time with me tonight. If you enjoyed the stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep growing our little corner of the unknown. And if you have a true scary experience of your own, I'd love to hear it. Send it to the email in my description or through the submission form in the About section. Your story could be featured in a future episode. Until next time, keep the lights low, the volume up, and I'll meet you where the shadows linger.